Should we get started?
Let's go.
Let's go. Do I get the honours? Thank you very much. Is it because I got the long reach? Okay. Has exercise improved your mental health? If so, how? I really used exercise as like a weapon, I think, to try and make myself look thin and look a certain way. When I went on Love Island a few years ago, it really was like overtraining, over-exercising. It wasn't good for my mental health. So now I think of movement. I think movement's much more inclusional. Going out for a good old stomp, going for a walk is as good for your mental health as any form of traditional exercise. So for me, like, I think the change in how I view exercise has really helped my mental health, and I enjoy moving for my mind now more than I do to kind of look a certain way.
For me, if I've got stuff going on in my mind, I can do some of my best thinking when I'm out running, and I think it's hugely different for everyone. And you talk about different activities at different times. Sometimes we need that calm, we need the yoga. Sometimes it's getting out for the walk, and certainly we say to people go out for a walk. It doesn't have to be long or intense, and I think that 15.09 minutes can be enough to increase our mood, and I think that's absolutely fantastic for our mental health. I know for me, I've used it to celebrate my body and the strength I feel, but also when there's bad times in my life, to use it as my medicine. So it's a huge coping strategy for me to get out there, and something certainly we promote at Mind.
I come from a competitive world where absolutely everything is competitive and you do not forgive, and so learning to find out what is good for me. Like, what do I need? I don't need that competitiveness, because I'm going to look at you and say, oh my God, when is my six-pack coming? And that's opposite of taking care of myself.
I do feel like in myself, I've learned over the years that is important to understand the difference between discipline and motivation, and where sometimes you've got to lean on that discipline. And stuff like for me throughout the pandemic, when I had an A&E shift, even though I really didn't want to go for a walk before or after, for me it really was a lifesaver, because coming out of A&E, your adrenaline's up here and you're really in a heightened state, but actually that movement afterwards just helped clear my mind. I try and do that to let myself go to sleep, basically. So it was important. And that discipline of I want to go home, go to bed, but I need this walk was important, I think. Yeah.
Is the main importance of the exercise to make you feel good or to change how you look?
That's an easy one for me. I think it's changed it, I'll be completely honest. Growing up, I think I was obsessed with, I was looking at certain magazine covers and being like, they look like that, I want to be like that, because I think there's a huge amount of pressure on boys. Worse now than ever, but even when I was younger, there was pressure. And I think I felt a lot of pressure before going on TV. And I think a lot of people do feel pressure before going on TV to look a certain way. But now, I honestly, I'm the happiest I've been the way I look. And I'm very happy, just, as you said earlier, really, that big thing is the health. And then your little things each day, if you work towards that, great.
Well, for me, I think coming from the Latin world and, wearing those tight types of dresses and having to show your body like that, and to seeing the change. Like when I do look at my pictures from a few years ago, I was like, yes, that is a look, but I don't believe I was healthy then.
I know from some of our research that 41% of people with mental health problems won't exercise or get active because they're so self-conscious about their bodies. So there's still this barrier because there's still that perception you've got to look a certain way. And it, like you say, it's changing mindsets as well, and that's key. How you feel from physical activity is an immediate benefit. It can take you a long time to see the other health benefits, the benefits to your cardiovascular, the diabetes. You know better than me on some of this, Alex, but it's the mental health benefits. You get there at the end, you get the endorphins, the dopamine, the serotonin, that high. And that's tangible, and we can see that difference straight away.
I don't know how we've got to the point where now to see an authentic male or female body online is so rare. And I think the pressure's built and built and built, where influencers feel they have to edit and look a certain way, and then people just regular everyday people that maybe aren't with big followers are feeling, oh gosh, I have to edit my photos now because I need to look like this person or that person. And it really isn't just women as well. I know we talk about it a lot amongst the female population, but it really affects men as well. I speak in my job to young people up and down the country, and young men feel that they need abs, they need the muscles, they need to have facial hair that looks a certain way, and I think the pressure on young boys is growing and growing and growing.
I think it's about monitoring as well your usage online and who you're following. I do a lot of cleanses all the time because I'm like, this needs to be an inspiring place. I need to feel like it's adding value and not making me feel bad. And when I do feel bad, saging my iPhone and clearing out all those accounts that aren't necessarily inherently bad or negative, they're just not making me feel great. And when you step outside, my feed does not look like the people that are on the bus and jumping on the tube. And that's, I think, a reflection of like your Instagram feed, your social media feed isn't a reflection of the population.
I say that exactly.
Not getting that like warped idea of this is our world.
Well, it's the point. If you look at, if you look at a cover shoot of a popular magazine, you'll see someone in a certain shape. They probably train for probably 18 weeks running up to that cover shoot. 2 weeks before, they'll be in like pre-shoot mode. A week, and this will mean really, heavily adapting their diet changes, exercising unbelievably. In the few days before, they'll do stuff like cut out certain foods, and they'll do it to shred down, to a certain weight for that day. And if you ask those people, what did you look like 2 or 3 weeks later? Probably wasn't what they looked like that day. And there's nothing wrong with that. No. But if you're saying that is the aesthetic ideal for a man, ripped abs and all that stuff, is it a realistic ideal? And I think that's what creates people thinking I need to look like that, is the aesthetic stuff rather than the mind.
I was the 100th cover of Women's Health and I didn't shred, I didn't do any of those things. But I was also really lucky and privileged to be in a position where I was celebrated for my body. And it was because I was able to achieve something that was pretty cool, like running a marathon, and I didn't have a body transformation. In fact, I put on weight. And I was actually happy about it because I was eating more, I was gaining muscle mass, like it made sense. And it was something that wasn't even on my radar of something I needed to acknowledge. And I just focused on the fact that my body was able to do that for me and get me from A to B and accomplish that challenge that I set out for myself.
We celebrate physical transformation. What we don't see is the mental health transformation. So as I mentioned, like people that we've supported through our programs that have really struggling, socially isolated, feeling suicidal, no networks, really struggling with their mental health. And then actually for them to have a complete U-turn, healthier, got a social network, out 3 or 4 times a week, eating better, the whole package. And it's almost celebrating that mental health transformation like we do a physical health transformation.
And who are we transforming for at the end of the day? Like, who has set the pinnacle of what beauty should look like? Because it's an ever-changing popular phase. So I'm like, instead of chasing the next thing, just be you now and embrace it. Why is changing the conversation around transformation pics important to you?
To be honest, in the past, I think transformation pictures almost weaponized as well. I've had media and press showing pictures of me when they perceived me to be bigger versus when I was thinner on the show, and in ways weaponizing that against me. And I actually look at that and think, it's a real sad state that the society's in that we think that way, whereas I'm excited to see transformation photos that show no or little physical change whatsoever, other than maybe a sweat, and actually everything that is real and tangible is what's experienced inside and how you feel. And I think that would be an amazing message for young people.
Yeah, I agree. Off the back of that, just tuning into having seen transformation pics that aren't about our bodies or not these huge aesthetic changes, but focusing on the internal, is actually encouraging me to do more of that internal reflection and integrate and understanding more about what beauty can look like and how that can actually shine from inside out. I know it sounds cliche, but it really does. When I feel good, even after a workout, even after just hanging out with friends or doing other things that are really great for my mental health, it shines through. I feel beautiful. I see the world in a more beautiful state. It sounds really idealistic, but I think with transformation pictures, I'm just really excited to have more of a conversation around how the mental transformation can also look.
Why did you want to join ASICS in this journey on World Mental Health Day?
I just think it's brilliant when such a huge brand wants to shed light on something that hasn't been done at all, I don't think. And mental health has been something I've spoken about. I did a master's in child psychotherapy before I even got into the fashion business. And I've always threaded it into, as much as I worked in fashion and sold beautiful things and took lovely pictures, mental health and self-esteem, body confidence has always been something I've spoke about really openly online. And if I can work on a campaign that's also going to be talking about mental health, I think that's like the sweet spot and something that is just perfect.
I think the thing I'm realising more and more is it's everyone's responsibility, this, from like big governments to individuals to schools to parents to big brands to little brands. It's all of our responsibility. Everyone has mental health.
Yeah.
everyone needs to look after it. And, you know, for me, you know, I lost my brother a few years ago. I had a phone call that I'd never expect to have. And so, you know, you never know when something might happen that changes your life. And if you can do anything, even a little thing, to change the narrative that's currently in place in this country and go to a more healthy one, then it's amazing. And I think fair play to the brand.
Oh, completely. I think for us at Mind, obviously we're thrilled to partner with ASICS, and you know the fact that it was so fearless and doing something so different. For me, this campaign speaks to everyone. It speaks to people that are thinking about getting active, perhaps not because they are worried about their body image, they're feeling self-conscious and they're feeling put off. Equally, those people who are active already, who kind of look up to that or feeling that pressure to maintain, I think it feels like it's an opportunity to release the pressure valve and to have those conversations and really connect. So I think it's a campaign that speaks to everyone, and really excited to be part of it.